It's a huge week for Bitcoin. We're trading at 21,182, but that's where we're at. But it's going to be one of the biggest weeks for crypto. We've got the FOMC meeting this week where we're going to decide if Jerome Powell's going to raise rates or not, or Jerome Powell's going to decide whether or not he's going to raise rates. We also have the biggest crypto airdrop of all time happening in this week. So will the two events together, combined, will they take us to a Bitcoin that's over 40,000? I'm going to show you some data that actually shows that we may actually even get to 40,000 on Bitcoin this week. But I know you guys are a bunch of degens and you don't really care about Bitcoin. You care about altcoins. I also have some data for you about whether or not alts are going to follow. And if they are going to follow, well, when the hell are they going to follow? Because we need the altcoins to start moving. So it's going to be fun here today. It's going to be a huge show. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go. Get up, and get the guy. Go. Time to wake up, bitch. Get up. Get up. Get up.
Wakey, rise and shine. We've got a big week ahead of us. We had a big weekend behind us, which took us to 28,211, but that's the past. That's already in the past. We're going to talk about the future. Can Bitcoin get to $40,000 a Bitcoin this week? That is what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to just tell you that even though today I have COVID again, here I am bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom. So I want to know who's here with me. Even though I'm not feeling great, you got to excuse me today. My energy is going to be a bit lower than usual. Let me know how you guys are feeling in the chat below. Otherwise, let me know that you're actually present. James, are you here? All right. Who's that? Josh, are you here? Say present if you're here.
Present.
Oh my God. Who is this picture with the sunglasses here? Yeah, I can't embarrass people any further. Vivian, if you're here, say present. 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗍, if you're here, say present. Fred, if you're here. Okay, Fred is present, I guess. I guess you can say Fred is present. All right, so listen, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. This is definitely the most committed, most loyal, most hardworking crypto channel in crypto that I can tell you. As I said to you guys, here I am, sick to death with COVID. I feel terrible today, but here I am bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom because there's a lot to talk about today. James, is my internet jumping? I just saw my internet jumping. Let me just jump off the Wi-Fi here. Okay, here I am. Hopefully it works. All right. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. If you are here and you're present, let me know that you're present. Let me know that you're present. Let's get the show on the road. Let's get the highest alpha per show in crypto. Let's get the show on the road. So where are we? We are at 21,163, and it's very hard to be bearish now. I'll tell you why it's very hard to be bearish now, because I don't care who you are. I don't care what your thesis is. The important thing is that now we've had Bitcoin close on the weekly above the 200-week moving average. So you got the weekly. There is your weekly chart. And you can see that for the first time in a long time, we've actually closed above the 200-week moving average, which, as this tweet over here says, it's hard to be bearish now. When you've closed above the weekly 200 MA, you've closed above the weekly 200 EMA, you've closed above the 25,200 range high. So we really did have the most, we couldn't have wished for a better weekly close. And, there are some people that are still bears and they're still looking for some kind of invalidation. But by now, the majority of people that are, logical, rational people, they've now seen that we have broken all these different types of resistances. We're also seeing a very positive sign. Now, when I say a very positive sign, it's not good for us right now. But what we've seen is we've seen the largest percentage gain on the weekly for Bitcoin dominance since the 2021 bottom. And that's exactly what the code word is here. Everybody is watching the Bitcoin dominance chart. And a lot of people are panicking. Is this only a Bitcoin run? Are we not going to get an altcoin run? Is this time actually different? I'm going to show you later on in the charts that this time is actually exactly the same as all other charts. And to be honest, I remember when I was here in I guess it was after 2017 bull market, around 2019. And I remember making the mistake of taking all my alts and switching all my alts to Bitcoin because I thought that that time was going to be a Bitcoin only run. Obviously it wasn't. Altcoins ran much harder than Bitcoin. And I'm starting to get the same feeling now. But I guess the big question is, when is Bitcoin going to pull back and let the alts actually start running? When are people going to start taking profits on their Bitcoin and actually start putting the money into alts? And again, I say I felt this way before, and I'm going to show you the data that actually shows probably when this is going to happen. But regardless who you are, right now it's very difficult to be bearish on Bitcoin. You can see that it's starting to be reflected in the fear and greed index. People are starting to get quite greedy. If you look at the monthlies on Bitcoin, so we haven't really had, other than 2013, and 2021, we haven't had 3 months in the beginning of the year which have been positive. Now, even though February was very, very mildly positive, look at January, February, and March. You're talking about a 60% increase in Bitcoin in that period alone. So it's very, very hard to be bearish when you've got those kind of numbers. And then you look at how Bitcoin has performed against other assets. And as per Goldman Sachs, their research data shows that Bitcoin is now the best performing asset class in the world this year. So they compare it to a whole lot of other asset classes. They compare it to information technology, which we're going to talk about. The reason why we're going to talk about specifically information technology is because Bitcoin has been correlated to the Nasdaq for the majority of the last year. Bitcoin has been correlated to the Nasdaq, but now we've seen a decorrelation. Now Bitcoin is not really correlated to Nasdaq. Does this mean that this time it's different? Does this mean that we're maybe getting into a new cycle? Let's take a look. So we look at the year-to-date performance, and what we can see is that Bitcoin is the best performing asset. You got it 68.5% this year. You got the Nasdaq up 15.25%. You got gold up 9%, but that's 9% on a huge market cap. You got the S&P up 2.4%. But something is going on here, and I'm going to show you what that something is, because everyone's looking at the performance of Bitcoin, but not everyone's seeing what's actually going on. Also, which is very, very, very encouraging, what you can see is that this move up is not a move up on low volume. This is a move up on huge volume. So look at the volume bar over here, and you can see that this move up is actually on very, very, very big volume. So all in all, very, very, very positive for Bitcoin. You can't deny that, no matter who you are. I do see some bears on crypto Twitter. You can remain bearish. I guess I think 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍 also came out this weekend, and he said that he remains bearish. Right now, I think for me, it's very, very hard to be bearish, especially seeing what's going on. And specifically, when I look at the performance of Bitcoin, Angel, I see you present. Amazing. Stephen, I see you're present. SK, I see you're present. Long-term holder, I see you're present. Volume is run deploying. I am deploying. Of course, I'm deploying. I'll show you actually what I've deployed into. I actually took some more Bitcoin yesterday. Let me show you. I might actually even have the position here. Let me just quickly find it for you. Make sure I'm not revealing. So yesterday I did take, here we go. I'll show you this position over here. I've got, I did buy 12 Bitcoin yesterday on Bybit, 10x leverage. I bought them at an average price of 27,500, now to 28,050. That trade is up 20% so far. You can see the tweet below, the trade below. I'm waiting for this Algorand position. I'm waiting for the altcoin run so I can start trading in and out of the altcoin positions. Anyway, what we are seeing this year, or this run, is we're seeing Bitcoin very performing. Let me just show you the performance so you can see where I'm getting this information from. But if you look at this, you got Bitcoin up 68.5%. You got tech up 15.25%. You got the S&P not performing, and then you got gold performing. And this is where I think we may be seeing a clue. You've got gold performing better than it's performed for a very, very, very long period of time. And what we know about gold is we know that gold is very much a safe haven asset. We know that gold is traditionally the type of asset that people run to when they think the financial system is going to collapse, when they think that they can't trust the markets and they can't trust the governments. They go into the scarce, hardest asset, which up until now has always been gold. And for a long time, we have wanted Bitcoin to be positioned like gold, but that hasn't been the case, right? So what we've had is we've had Bitcoin more correlated to the NASDAQ, more correlated to the S&P 500. And we always complained that Bitcoin was being treated like a tech stock. And when the NASDAQ started to go down last year, when the stock market started to I won't say collapse, but started to correct based on the fact that Jerome Powell was trying to tame inflation, we started to get the correlation between Bitcoin and the S&P and the NASDAQ. But something has actually happened. So this is a tweet from a guy called Francesco. Let me actually follow him because I think it's a very good tweet. But what you can see here is he says, look, he says, is the big decorrelation finally happening? He says, this week, Bitcoin gained 60% while the banks lost more than $100 billion. Is Bitcoin finally going to decorrelate from traditional asset classes? And he says, look, Bitcoin has always been considered a non-traditional asset and a store of value over time. But historically, it's always been correlated to stocks. But then he shows something very interesting that's happening. So you can see if you correlate Bitcoin to stocks last year, you had Bitcoin correlated pretty perfectly. But recently, you can see that Bitcoin has started to break away from stocks. And that is where we might get something pretty encouraging here. We may be seeing that while the banks are collapsing, while the stock markets may actually be looking for a collapse, you may have Bitcoin finally decorrelating. And if it is decorrelating, well, what you can see is that it is actually starting to be more and more correlated to gold. So let me show you an example here. So I don't know if you can see this, but what you can see is that if the gold is the blue line and the correlation between Bitcoin and gold is starting to move more towards 1, and the correlation between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ and Bitcoin and the S&P 500 is actually starting to move down. So what we're starting to see is we're starting to see Bitcoin less correlated to the risk on assets like the stock markets and more correlated to gold. So that means that if you're following this thesis and you're following the fact that the world economy doesn't look very good now, you've got the banks that have started to collapse. You've got Powell now in a pickle because can he actually raise interest rates like he wants to raise interest rates this week? I don't think so. We're going to talk about that in a second. What we're also seeing here is we are seeing the S&P 500, and you can see this bull trap, and then S&P 500 correcting. Then you got the same thing in 2008, bull trap, S&P correcting, and then you may have the same thing happening here, bull trap, and then S&P correcting. You may be, and if that's the case, and if Bitcoin is not correlated to the S&P 500, then that could mean that if we do get this pullback in the S&P 500, as crypto holders, or specifically not crypto holders, but Bitcoin holders, we may actually be insulated against it. And that's super important. By the way, we also have the biggest airdrop in crypto this week, which we're going to talk about later. I'm going to show you guys how to trade the Arbitrum airdrop and which other altcoins may run. But for now, someone says, close your position. Why would I close the position? It's a winning position. Is Bitcoin pulling back? No, not closing my position anytime soon. Yes, Bitcoin has pulled slightly back, but this is actually when I might even add one. So I might actually even add some more here. So let me just go here quickly while we're all together, and let me actually buy one. So I'm going to buy one Bitcoin at that price. Execute it. Okay, my order's been placed. Hopefully it will get hit before the end of the show. But for now, as I was saying to you, it's not about altcoins. It's about Bitcoin. And a lot of people are getting a little bit, what's the word? Anxious, perturbed, worried. I don't know what the exact word is when they see this chart over here, which is the Bitcoin dominance chart. You can see Bitcoin dominance almost went to 48%. Now, the Bitcoin bulls are obviously loving this. They're looking at this and they're going, we told you so. We told you it's going to happen. You got Benjamin Cowen. He's come out quite aggressively against Ethereum, pointing out that the Bitcoin dominance excludes stables is now at 51%. He's looking at this and going, the time is now for Bitcoin. But I think the part that he's actually been forgetting, and he's looking at the Bitcoin Ethereum chart and he's saying, look, it's the, Bitcoin Ethereum chart has come back all the way to August and July 2021 levels. But the one thing that he is missing, is he's missing this tweet by the Irishman, who's actually one of our researchers. And he says, the dominance usually spikes up, usually near the bottom. And then we go up from there. And usually what happens, and I want to show you this because as I said to you in the beginning of the show, what happened to me in 2019 or whenever the 2019 or 2020 bull market started is I bought a whole lot of altcoins. I held them in 2017. I held them through the 2017, 2018, 2019 bear market. It was painful. I sat there and it was painful. I was watching my altcoins bleed specifically against Bitcoin. And then at the point where I broke, and I remember one day I just took all my altcoins and I converted all my altcoins into Bitcoin. That is when the altcoins actually started running. And it was a very, very, very similar picture to the one that we have today. So every time that we think that this time is going to be different, we realize that this time is not different. This morning, we saw some altcoins for the first time start performing better on the Bitcoin pair, because right now the important thing to look at is actually not the altcoins versus USD. What you want to be looking at is the altcoins versus Bitcoin, and you want to see how the altcoins are performing versus Bitcoin. So let's look at the 𝗖𝗍𝗶𝗍 chart, for example, right? So I take the 𝗖𝗍𝗍𝗍 chart, and what you can see is that the 𝗖𝗍𝗍𝗍 chart hasn't really been performing very well against Bitcoin. And why you're looking at this is because you're saying, what is my return above what I would get from holding Bitcoin? Now, most alts are actually underperforming Bitcoin. They have been underperforming Bitcoin. You can see it in the 𝗖 chart. Up until this morning, 𝗖 was, you would be better off holding Bitcoin because the performance of Solana wasn't good. But now we've had this big green candle from Solana. That's one of the ones that has been performing. Let's look at the ETH BTC chart. Hasn't had that breakout yet. So you've now got ETH BTC. It's not doing well against Bitcoin. So right now, for those, it would be a good time to rather be holding Bitcoin over them. But that is the trap. That is the same trap that I fell into in 2019. I felt that this time was going to be different and that this time was going to be a Bitcoin only run. And guess what? It was a Bitcoin only run for a long time until it wasn't. And when it wasn't, the altcoins outperformed Bitcoin a lot. Someone says Phantom's outperforming Bitcoin very well. Let's look at that. Phantom, BTC. You want to be seeing the charts. Okay, there we go. You see, so I mean, this is, I'm not a chartist, but I can easily, in 1 second, I can see the pattern that's happening here. You got a perfect breakout on Bitcoin. You got a perfect retest for Phantom, which, I mean, if you are a chartist and you do think that you are reading into this chart, then you'd probably say that Phantom right now is a good buy because it's somewhere here on the retest. What you can see though is that if you look at, so these are the BTC pairs. Joe, one of our researchers, put them all down for me, and you can see all of them are underperforming. The only ones that today have performed well against Bitcoin are Solana, which has performed 7.73% up against Bitcoin, and you've got Link, which is about 3.28% above Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that because there are some whales that are buying a Link, and we should look at why they're buying Link. But what I want to show you is this chart over here, because the top chart over here is Bitcoin, and the bottom chart is total 3, which is the degen altcoins. Because effectively what it is, it's altcoins, but then what happens is you remove Ethereum, because Ethereum is such a big altcoin, and you start looking at the performance of the altcoins against Bitcoin. Now, this line is when BTC topped. So you can see here, BTC topped. And you can see that the alts didn't top for a long period of time, actually. In fact, the alts, total 3, rallied 300% after BTC topped. And you can see the same thing happen in 2021. The same happened. It rallied 65% after BTC topped. So what you normally get is you get BTC topping, dominance obviously topping, and then you get BTC starting to come down, and then the money starts flowing into the altcoins. And I don't believe that this time will be different. I believe that every time we're in that position, we think that this time it will be different. But I don't think it's going to be different. I think you need to, if you're holding good quality alts, obviously if you're holding good quality alts, if you're holding bad quality alts, I can't help you. But if you're holding good quality alts, then I think hold, because I think that this is exactly what happened in 2019 and early in 2021. And I think that eventually it always turns. Now, listen, I may be wrong. Maybe this cycle will prove itself to be a very different cycle. But having been here for a while, I just can't see it happening. I just think that all cycles so far have been the best. Even though we're getting all these shenanigans in the banks and inflation and whatever else, which we'll talk about in a second. You can see, I've looked here to see which alts have outperformed Bitcoin over the last 90 days. And there's not a lot of alts that have outperformed Bitcoin over the last 90 days. And they only say that alt season happens if 75% of the top 50 coins perform better than Bitcoin in the last 90 days. I don't think that we're there yet. And as I said to you before, I believe that if you follow this metric over here, and you zoom out, let's actually see if we can zoom out. For some reason, it's not letting me zoom out. Let's see. There we go. So you can see if you zoom out, you do see that the Bitcoin altcoin cycle is actually very, very cyclical. So right now it's very much Bitcoin season, but look what's happened every other time it's been Bitcoin season. You go down, eventually you bounce, and then it becomes alt season, and then you go down, and it seems to keep repeating itself. So I don't think that this cycle is going to be different. I guess time will tell, and maybe not. Maybe I will have 𝗟𝗿𝗍𝗍𝗍 in a while, and maybe the Bitcoin maxis can have their day in the sun and cut this video up and actually meme me to death. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to, if you're holding good quality alts, I think you'll be okay. I think, in fact, you'll be better than okay. And I think at some point, this Bitcoin cycle has to end. This thing was made by Secrets of Crypto a long time ago. And you can see it's the same pattern, every single one. Bitcoin goes to ETH, goes to large cap alts, and then goes to the smaller altcoins. And I believe that this cycle will hold. But for now, what we want is we actually want Bitcoin to continue running. Because the more Bitcoin runs, the more profits there are from Bitcoin to put into alts. Because remember, what happens is money goes into Bitcoin. Then the money that goes into Bitcoin, the people make profit. When they make profit, they take profits and they start getting greedy with those profits. They say, look, I want to put my profits into something that's going to give me a much bigger, much better return than the Bitcoin, because I feel like I missed half the run. And that's typically when the money starts flowing into altcoins. And so I think for now, we must let Bitcoin have its time in the sun. And the higher Bitcoin goes before altcoins start running, probably the more aggressive the altcoin run is. And I'm kind of looking for a 48, maybe 49% Bitcoin dominance before we get into that run. So right now we're on 47.52. I'm looking for 48, maybe 49%. If it goes higher than that, and I would say probably if it goes above this 48.54, then we need to meet again. Then we need to meet again and say, in fact, let's say 49%. If it goes above 49%, then I think we need to meet again. Then I'll call another meeting. I'll send you guys all meeting requests. We can get together. We can have another meeting and discuss it. Anyway, sure, I'm starting to feel really bad. Whew. Someone says Bitcoin is crashing. 27,870 is hardly Bitcoin crashing. Hardly Bitcoin crashing. James, it's time to buy more. Did my order get filled? Yes, my order got filled. Okay, that's good. My order's filled. I'm very happy holding those 13 Bitcoin for a while. All right, so big week this week. Big week this week. So on Wednesday, we have the Fed rate hike decision. So we have Jerome Powell and the Fed having to decide if they're going to increase interest rates. Now, this has been the most exciting chart to watch for a long time. What is going to happen this week? Remember, before the show, it was 34% for a 25 basis point rate hike. Now 26.9%. It keeps moving. This is the one FOMC where I guess nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows whether Jerome Powell is going to increase by 25 basis points, just so he doesn't show that he's been defeated and that he made a mistake doing what he's doing. But at the same time, you do have the banks collapsing. And there is a big concern now that the banks are really, really, really starting to collapse. Now, what's going to happen? Is Jerome Powell going to go in there and raise by 25% and say, fuck the banks? Or is Jerome Powell going to go in there and say, hold on, we realize that things are breaking, and admit some kind of defeat? I was in the camp that there's going to be no interest rate increase this month. But I don't see Jerome Powell coming out and admitting that he's made another mistake, because that to me would be, I don't know, some kind of suicide. But you can see the market's been changing quite a bit. 10 days ago, people were saying that there's still 100 basis points of rate hikes. Now the market's saying, look, there's either one more 25 basis points or tightening is over. There's no more rate hikes. And in fact, there's rate cuts, which start in September 2023. So that's Wednesday. Wednesday, super, super, super important day for crypto. Thursday is the biggest airdrop in crypto. And we're going to talk at the end of the show. We're going to talk about how to trade that airdrop and what the effects of that airdrop are going to be. I think they're going to be absolutely huge. I think we're bringing in over $1 billion into the crypto market. I'm going to show you what the effect of that $1 billion is going to be on the crypto market. But right now, Jerome Powell, I don't know how he's sleeping at night. He has to make a huge decision as to whether or not he's going to continue to raise rates and risk breaking the banks, especially when he has been warned by some of the biggest people in the world. You've got 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍𝗍 who's warning him. You've even had Elon Musk respond there and saying, the Fed is operating with way too much latency in the data. Rates need to drop immediately. He's saying, basically, it's time for rates to drop immediately. Big decision. So we will be covering this with you guys live. I think we'll be live on Twitter Spaces and we'll be live on YouTube at some point. So we'll keep you guys updated. We'll all be here. We'll be watching this together live. We'll actually all be trading this live. So maybe I'll just hold this position of mine open and we'll just be trading it live together, deciding what to do on that day. All right, let's talk about the banking collapse, because there's lots of news when it comes to the banking collapse. So remember, first, the banking contagion started in the US, and it started off with a very small crypto bank going bust. And everyone said, Silvergate Bank is a crypto bank, and that's why Silvergate Bank is going bust. And then it went to Silicon Valley Bank, which was, the 16th biggest bank in the US. And then they went bust. And then people started to admit that, hold on, there's a problem here. Maybe things aren't as good as they seem. And then it spread to Europe. And we started to see some of the big banks in Europe, including Credit Suisse, start to get, mass withdrawals and potentially collapse. And last week, they assured us that because of all the regulation and legislation in the States and because of this Basel agreement and whatever else, they said, look, everything with Credit Suisse is fine, but the Swiss government will give them 50 billion Swiss francs that they can call on. So you remember that. That was all last week. So last week, they tried to convince us that everything was okay. But I guess everything wasn't okay, because over the weekend, they came out and they said, look, there was a risk. FINMA came out and said there was a risk of Credit Suisse becoming illiquid. And then they started to put Credit Suisse up for sale, and they started to look for solutions. And it seems like what happened over the weekend, or what did happen over the weekend, is UBS bought Credit Suisse. So that's what happened. So there were a lot of negotiations on the weekend. And the outcome of the negotiations were that UBS landed up buying Credit Suisse. It happened on the weekend. Very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? Strange circumstances, that you take a bank that seems to be okay, or that was assured to be okay, and then on the weekend, you arrange like emergency meetings and a buyout. And it wasn't actually a normal buyout. It was a buyout that was kind of backstopped by the Swiss national government. So you can see what happened was UBS announced that the takeover of Credit Suisse with the support of the Swiss government. Now, some highlights, as Mario Norfel says, he says, both banks will have unrestricted access to the Swiss National Bank facilities. Both banks can obtain liquidity assistance loans up to $100 billion Swiss francs. And FINMA says there was the risk of Credit Suisse becoming illiquid. The Swiss president says it's not possible to restore faith in confidence in Credit Suisse. It grants 9 billion in guarantees to Credit Suisse. And so the list goes on. Now, usually when you get a buyout between one company and another, usually what happens is the stock of the one company goes up and the stock of the other company either goes down or stays the same, or maybe even goes up. In this case, you can see that it doesn't seem right because you had the UBS group go all the way down to $14. Okay, I do see that maybe it's had some slight. And then you had Credit Suisse. I mean, Credit Suisse is absolutely collapsed. Have a look at this. So they've gone down from their Friday close of $2.08, and it looks like they've opened at $1. So that's, I mean, it's not a pretty picture. It's not a pretty picture. It looks like it's a very contrived, very forced buyout to try and save face. And at the same time, what you're seeing is the UBS credit default swaps, which is, it is an instrument that bets on UBS going down. Look what happened to the UBS credit default swap. It went from 60 to 132. That's saying that people believe that since UBS has done this crazy move, that UBS is now at risk of actually collapsing. Now, that's not a good thing. You don't want to be doing a buyout like that. And you can see that it's almost manipulated, contrived. I don't know what the word is. Swiss government says to strengthen financial market stability, the takeover is complete. Until the takeover is complete, the federal government is providing a guarantee for additional liquidity assistance. So the government bailing out another bank. That's how I read this whole thing. And that is now sending contagion across all the other banks. Some people on the Twitter spaces last night were saying the crisis is over because now UBS has bought Credit Suisse. But that's not what's happening here. You got to open your eyes and see what's happening here. What's happening here is the banks are starting to collapse. It started off with the alarm bells being rung or sounded in the US. Then it spread to Europe. And right now, you don't want to be in banks. You want to be out of banks. And I think that is what's causing a lot of people to run back to Bitcoin, you see, because you had a lot of the people, you've had the alarm bells sounded about how the banks may actually be collapsing. And it didn't help that someone who's super credible, Balaji, he came out this weekend. I'm sure you guys saw it because you guys are very much in tune. And he said that he's taking a bet. Here it is. Let me just try and find you that tweet. He says, there was a bet. There was a guy called James Medlock, and he says, I'll bet anyone $1 million that the US does not enter hyperinflation. Balaji says, hold on a second. He says that within the next 90 days, he's willing to take the bet that Bitcoin is going to get to $1 million and that the US is going to hit hyperinflation. Okay, so he's willing to take this bet. Now, usually when people are willing to take $1 million bets, I don't really pay attention. It's like, okay, crypto people, big dick swinging contests, can I bet $1 million? But the problem is Balaji is different. And I'll tell you why Balaji is different. He came out on the 30th of January, 2020. Now, let me take you guys back to the 30th of January, 2020. COVID was not a thing back then. COVID was a small virus contained to China that we hardly heard about in the Western media. And he wrote a tweet, which was a long tweet thread, and he called the tweet thread going viral. And he says, what if this coronavirus is the pandemic that public health people have been warning about for years? It would accelerate many pre-existing trends. Border closures, nationalism, social isolation, preppers, remote work, face masks, distrust in governments. So he said all of this. And if you follow this tweet, he kind of predicted a whole lot of things that would happen way before the borders were actually closed in March or April and when they were actually closed. So and I remember reading his tweet, and I remember when I read this tweet, I thought to myself, Balaji's a smart guy, but this is sensationalist. And then what landed up happening was that 90% of what he spoke about in this tweet actually landed up materializing. And so when he comes out again and he gets into his tweet mood again, and he says, look, there is going to be hyperinflation. The banks are going to collapse in the US. I'm just scared because I'm starting to feel like if I discount him again and he's right again, then this time I would have had a way out. During COVID, I didn't have a way out because I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't understand what the protector was. But this time I do. This time I understand what happens if the banks collapse. I understand what happens in hyperinflation. I understand that I can tap out of the system if I want to by just buying Bitcoin. And so that's why, to be honest, when I opened this long position, which was 12 Bitcoin, when I've now made it 13 Bitcoin while we've been sitting here talking, the reason why I opened it is because I said I want to have $300,000 more exposure to Bitcoin. Now, I did it on a 10x. I don't recommend that you guys do it on 10x. I can do it on a 10x because you can see my liquidation price is 16,000. So I got a long way to go here. But you can actually get more exposure if you buy into the Balaji thing. Now, regardless of whether we're going to get Balaji on the show, we have reached out to him. Now, regardless of whether you believe what he said, someone said Rani is sweating, must be the jab. It's not. I have got COVID at the moment. I tested this positive this morning, but I figured I'd still be here. And bring you crypto love and crypto wisdom. So I'm sorry if I am sweating, if I do sound a bit less energetic than usual. That's just how I feel at the moment. Anyway, regardless of whether he's right or wrong, I think what he's done is he's created an amazing marketing campaign for Bitcoin to highlight to people what can happen if. Now, when people see this, what can happen if, they say to themselves, well, you know, I don't really want to put all my money into Bitcoin, but I am going to put some of my money into Bitcoin, because if I don't, and this actually does play out the way that he says it might actually play out, and if he is actually right around, you know, what he says here, he says they were lying about money printing. If you follow his Twitter, and I'm not going to go to his Twitter now because it's literally retweeting a whole lot of other people's tweets. But he said they lied about money printing. He said the Fed is actually known for a very long period of time that the banks are actually insolvent, and they failed to take any steps because they wanted to continue to increase interest rates. And it's factual. What he says is factual. Now, remember one thing about a banking collapse. One thing about a banking collapse is that when the dominoes start to fall, it doesn't happen slowly and over time. Once people realize that the first domino falls, and then maybe the second domino falls, the first bank and the second bank falls, then people start to panic and everybody runs for the doors and says, I want my money out of the banks. And when that happens, the banks collapse. And when they collapse pretty quickly. So remember, if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I'm just going to wait a little bit longer just to see if any more banks collapse, just be careful, because these things typically happen very, very, very quickly. It doesn't happen slowly. Banks don't collapse slowly. Banks collapse really, really quickly. As I said, it's a case of saying, you know, I'll give an example, and maybe it's a bad example, but I always say it's like a nightclub, and it's like you lock people in a nightclub and they dance in a nightclub and there's no food and they're all starving, but you know, they carry on dancing because there's no food. The minute that you put a pizza outside and people realize that there's 10,000 people in the nightclub and there's only one pizza, you're going to get a run for the doors. That's exactly what's going to happen if we get a bank run. Now, I'm not saying we are going to get a bank run. I'm saying the possibility is there. I'm not saying we are going to have hyperinflation. I'm saying the possibility is there. And I think that what Balaji did very well, regardless of whether he's right or wrong, what he did very, 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 very well is he brought awareness to something that actually could happen. And that is, I think he's done that very, very, very well. Now, I do agree with a lot of these tweets that say that, you know, if what he says actually happens in the next 90 days, if what he says actually happens in the next 90 days, it's going to be a very, very ugly world. It's going to be a very ugly world. And there was another tweet here, which I want to read to you. It's from 𝗟𝗏𝗿𝗍𝗍. And he says, how would the world look if Bitcoin were to actually hit $100 million in 90 days? Now, the truth is we'd have an inflation rate of 3,700, which would exceed 3,700%, which would exceed Zimbabwe. We would have the Federal Reserve raising interest rates to 4,000%. So we don't want this world to happen. Conversion of US dollars to gold or crypto would be deemed illegal because that's how they do it. They make rules about these things. And the reason why I'm showing this is because I think it is unlikely that Bitcoin is going to hit $1 million in the next 90 days. But I think that the possibility of something like that happening is very, very, very high. Or not, let's not say very high, but certainly existent. And you want to have an insurance policy against against if it does happen, you want to have some money out of there, and you want to have some kind of insurance policy. Anyway, let's go back to where we were. So if you look at the thumbnail there says that Bitcoin could go to $40,000 this week. But is that a reality? You do have two really big events this week. The first thing that you have is you have the FOMC meeting. And as I said to you, I think it's going to be 50-50 whether Powell increases rates or doesn't increase rates. I think we'll find out closer at the time. But then you also have a very, very, very big airdrop into crypto. And I want to show you the magnitude of this airdrop into crypto. Now, why are we talking about it? We're talking about it because airdrops in crypto create free money, create stimulus in crypto. And when these airdrops happen, we saw it with the Blur airdrop, we saw it with the Aptos airdrop. When you get the airdrop, that is like bringing in more money into the economy. Now, in this case, on the 23rd, which is Thursday, we're getting an airdrop of 1.2 billion Arbitrum tokens onto people. So what does that mean? It means that a whole lot of people, in fact, let me show you some stats of the number of people that are actually going to get this airdrop. Hold on, I just want to show you the stats here. So 650,000 crypto people are all of a sudden going to receive 1.2 billion Arbitrum tokens. Okay, so that's what's happening on Thursday. Now, you have to have a plan to trade this because there's going to be a lot of money to be made and to be lost in the Arbitrum airdrop. And what it's going to do is it's going to pump the market. Now, how much is it going to pump the market? That depends on two things. One, what happens the day before when Powell goes live. The second thing that it's going to depend on is what is the price going to be of the Arbitrum token that is airdropped. Now, let's do this. Sorry, someone says 650,000 wallets, not people. You're right. It is 650,000 wallets, not 650,000 people. 100%. Now, so you need to have a plan. Like if I looked at this guy, I think his name is Don Crypto. He has a plan. I'm buying under $1. I'm holding between $1 and 1.5, and I'm selling or I'm going short 1.5 plus. Now, you got to do the following. First things first, you have to have an account where you can buy and sell Arbitrum tokens before the time. We, as I said to you, we use BitGet, we use Bybit, and we use OKX. You can see that Bybit have a promotion, which is if you deposit money into, if you deposit your airdropped Arbitrum, you actually get bonuses for depositing your airdrop, your Arbitrum. So if you go to Bybit and you deposit 250 Arbitrum, you get 25 USD immediately. GMX uses exclusive deposit 500 Arbitrum and earn 0.5 GMX. So you can see that they have rewards, a whole lot of different rewards for you guys for depositing your Arbitrum. So the first thing is you got to have an account because there's going to be lots of ways to trade this. The second thing is that you've got to have a plan. Like you can't wait for Arbitrum to launch. Now, this guy, Don Crypto, he has a plan. We'll talk about his plan and see if his plan is flawed. But he's saying, look, I'm buying under $1. I'm holding between $1 and 1.5, and I'm selling between $1 and $1.50. How do you make a plan? How do you make the plan? I'll tell you how you make the plan. You look at relative valuations and you take a view on Arbitrum. So let me show you. If I look at relative valuations, okay, so the best comparison that I can compare Arbitrum to is I can compare Arbitrum to Optimism. Why? They're both optimistic rollups. They're both layer 2s on Ethereum. Today, Optimism has a fully diluted valuation of 11.5 billion. So let's quickly make sure I'm giving correct facts because the market is moving while I talk. $11.25 billion is the current fully diluted valuation of Optimism. So you kind of know that Arbitrum is going to trade at a minimum of a fully diluted valuation of $11.243 billion. If that's the then that would give Arbitrum a token value of $1.25. So we know that the minimum value, if it just trades on par with Optimism, is $1.25. Okay, so anything under $1.25, assuming all else stays the same, is for me a bargain. But then you got to look at the differences between Arbitrum and Optimism. The first thing is you look at all the metrics. Arbitrum has 5 to 10 times the volume of Optimism and 2 times the TVL. Okay, so Arbitrum is way bigger than Optimism. Then you say, let's look at all the metrics that actually matter. So let's put Arbitrum here. Let's take away Aptos. Let's take away Avalanche. Let's take away all the noise that we don't actually need. Let's take away Near. We can leave Polygon. We can leave Solana because it does help us. And then let's add in Optimism. And you can do this by yourself at artemis.xyz. Okay, so I've done that now, and you can see that you have Arbitrum as the blue line, and you have Optimism as the red line. Now you can see on all metrics. On TVL, Arbitrum beats Optimism. On DEX volume, Arbitrum destroys, annihilates Optimism, almost by a factor of 10x. In terms of fees collected, they're pretty close, okay? They're pretty close in terms of fees. In terms of, so you can see all the different metrics. Long story short, you can see that Arbitrum is a much better play than Optimism. There's also more wallets. There's 650,000 wallets that got the Arbitrum airdrop, and only 250,000 wallets and users, let's call a wallet a user for the sake of this, that got the Arbitrum airdrop. So I have seen many models. One model here says Arbitrum's price will be $3.4. If Arbitrum's price is $3.4, it gets a relative valuation of $34 billion. Now, to give an idea of how big $34 billion is, that would bring Arbitrum to be above XRP, which makes sense, above Cardano, above Polygon, above Lido, above all of them. In fact, the only protocols that would be bigger than Arbitrum would be BNB and Ethereum and Bitcoin, obviously. So you need to come up with a model. I think that a good fully diluted valuation for Arbitrum is somewhere around double Optimism, so $20 billion. So I think, no, maybe 20 billion is a bit high. So maybe $15 billion. So for me, I'm looking to buy it at under $10 billion, and I'm looking to sell it if it goes anything near $20 billion. Now, very important with airdrops. This is the part that you need to pay attention. Even if you haven't paid attention the whole time, pay attention to this, okay? Pay attention to this. So I took not me, in fact, one of our researchers created a whole lot of charts for us to show us what happens with airdrops. So I want to show you what happens with airdrops. The first thing with an airdrop is you have a crazy valuation. This is the Aptos airdrop. You can see crazy valuation. Aptos went to $22. Then it went all the way down in one candle, down to $3.10, and then it started to find its price. Once it started to find its price and it started to be on the app, the airdrop holders who got this thing for free actually started selling. And only once all the selling pressure from the airdrop had actually dried up, then we started to get people buying this thing up to, well, what they thought is fair value. I think that in this case, Aptos was unfairly valued. But let's look at the same thing with Optimism. Crazy candle up, all the way down to whatever the number was over here. Then all the way back down. Then slight climb back to fair price. Then dump. All the people that got free money, dump. Then once the dumping is out the market, we start to get the turn and people go. This took about 2 weeks. Let's look at how long the Aptos one took. Aptos, October 22nd. So this took about a couple of months. Let's look at Blur, because Blur did exactly the same thing. Big green candle, dump, up, until we get to some kind of fair valuation. Dump. This one took about 2 weeks. So what we can expect is the following. You can expect Arbitrum to launch at some kind of crazy valuation. You decide in your head what your crazy valuation is. I've decided in my head what my crazy valuation is. For me, anything over $2 for me is a crazy valuation. $20 billion market cap, to me, is too high. Anything over $3, ridiculous valuation. That's where I'm going to look to short. And that's why I've got my account open on Bybit. I can, and I know that they are going to list it, and I'm ready to take the short. Now, if you, and the same thing on BitGet, if you want to do this, do it. And towards the end of this week, we will give away $10,000 to someone who's opened a BitGet account or a Bybit account this week. So if you've bought a Bybit account or a BitGet account this week, we'll take the list of accounts that opened this week and let's say traded Arbitrum, just to be fair, because you bought it to trade Arbitrum. And then we'll give away $10,000 to someone who's traded Arbitrum either this week or early next week, just to make it a little bit more exciting. I feel like degening a bit with you guys. All right. So what are we looking for? Remember, because this is the most important part. This is why you got to pay attention. We're going to show you how to trade these things. You look for a crazy wick. You look for Arbitrum trading at $3 and $5 and $6. Even though right now on BitMEX, I think it's trading at $1.27. Okay, that's what it's trading at right now on BitMEX. But wait until the launch. When the launch happens, we expect the big green candle. Then we expect it to go all the way down, immediately, all the way down. And then you look to buy. So if it's, for me, if it's anything under $1.20, anything under $1.20, you go like a degen madman ape and you buy as many as you can. And then you hold it until it goes up. And then what's going to happen is people are going to start dumping it. And that may take as long as 2 weeks for people to start dumping it. And then that'll find the bottom. That's when we'll tell you guys to start buying, and we'll all start buying this thing together, and then we'll take Arbitrum all the way to Valhalla, because Arbitrum is eventually going to reach Valhalla, because it's just that's where it is. Shui, I feel bad, but let's carry on. We do have a little bit more to discuss. We do know now that Microsoft has launched a crypto wallet, which is going to be built into its next browser, which is amazing. So that's a massive move. And remember, when Microsoft does that, then Google has to follow. Otherwise, they could fall behind. We do also see that there are whales accumulating Chainlink, which is a big number. It's huge. We also saw that Chainlink actually outperformed relative to Bitcoin. So if you looked at the relative to Bitcoin pairs, I think it was over here, Link was one of the ones that actually started to outperform on the Bitcoin versus Bitcoin, which is actually very, very good. Okay, so there's a massive gaming conference that's happening at the moment in San Francisco from March 20th to March 24th, which is today's March 20th. So from today till March 24th. It's the Gaming Developers Conference, and it's like one of the biggest events for gaming developers. Now, I am expecting gaming tokens to start getting a run. I do see that 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍 has been teasing. As I said to you, I traded out of 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍. I just think they're teasing too much and not actually giving you enough. So here's another tease. This is from 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍, who's the founder. Tomorrow, 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍 is unveiling the first 3 fundamental utility upgrades of 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍. Overall, this will be the biggest token utility upgrade in history. A partner announcement that will fundamentally change 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍 and the Web3 gaming. And yeah, so they are doing it. I think tomorrow is actually today. So yeah, it's 14 hours ago. Tomorrow is actually today. Let's actually see what time this is. It's live in 3 hours. Okay, so it's live in 3 hours. So I'm expecting some kind of price movement on 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍. You have to note that 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍 actually has moved already. So let me just quickly, I don't know why this is giving me such trouble today. 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍 has actually moved quite a bit. Okay, let me do this off by a bit. So let me actually do this on a normal chart so you can see it. So 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍 has actually run a lot. Be careful that you're not buying the end of the run and it's a buy the rumor, sell the news event. I do own 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍 as well in my long-term portfolio. Even though I sold my trading position, I do actually hold a lot of 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗍 in my long-term portfolio, and we'll actually get Robbie on the show to actually talk to you guys about it. What else is there? I guess that's it. Remember to open your Bybit or BitGet or even OKX account so that you can trade the Aptos airdrop. All of those guys have told you that you can trade the Aptos airdrop. Bybit is giving you huge incentives for actually depositing your Aptos on the exchange. And of course, it's on the spot. There's 0 fees on Bybit. On the leverage, of course, there are fees. So you will have to pay the fees. But do it. We'll give away $10,000 sometime next week to someone who opened an account and actually traded Arbitrum. I do think there's going to be a lot of money to be made in Arbitrum. I think not only will it take the market up, because remember, let's say that we think that a fair price is $1.50, and all of a sudden you get 1.2 billion, 1.275 billion times $1.50. That's a big number. That's like 1.5, 1.6 billion dollars airdropped onto the market now. 1.5, 1.6 billion dollars airdropped onto the market is a huge number of tokens. It's a huge stimulus to the market. If we get no interest rate hike on Wednesday, and we get the Aptos airdrop on Thursday, then hold on tight, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be a fun ride. If we get a 25 basis point rate hike and we get the Arbitrum airdrop on Thursday, I think we get a slight pullback on Wednesday and we get a slight how do you do fly on Thursday when Arbitrum actually launched their token. Cool, my friends. So remember, on this channel in about 4 hours, we do have a DCA with CTO Larson and James from Invest Answers. I'll see you guys then, if I can. I'm hoping I'll still be okay. I am drinking lots of Energade and wow, look at that. I can't even see the color. I am drinking lots of Energade and stuff like that. So hopefully I'll still be okay. Hopefully I don't get more sick. I'll see you guys later. Until then, trade well, my friends.